I had a pretty unpopular take about Shedeur Sanders this offseason, and I'm going to have another one today.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I am your host, Kevin Borba. Today's episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Go to 5hourenergy.com and use promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. We are also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Joining me today, Scott Procter, the one, the only, and we're going to have some fun. I didn't even tell Scott what my take is, so he's about to be as surprised as anyone. And my take stems from the Colorado State game, post-game, and I think Shedeur Sanders, the way he acted, was warranted. I think he's taken way too much heat for something that most programs in college football or most fan bases in college football don't care about unless it's Colorado, and let's talk about it. Some context. Brayden Fowler-Nicolosi and Tory Horton, they do an interview before the game, so they should have murdered Colorado. That's a quote. Should have murdered them. And then they said, let's see how their Instagram followers help them, something along those lines. And they were basically saying that they were going to make a statement this weekend, all of this. Brayden called Travis Hunter too small during the game, which, I mean, very bold strategy. I don't know if you guys saw my tweet, but Travis Hunter would not only go on to pick him off, but after that moment, he had 2 touchdown catches and an interception. So probably not the ideal situation there. But a lot of people are firing back at Shedeur Sanders for a little, I would say, choice words, actions post-game where he told the Colorado State quarterback that he can't F with him. And I think if this were any other quarterback in college football, no one would care, right? It'd be like, oh, that's chippy. But since it's Shedeur Sanders, people care. And I think that's ridiculous. I think realistically, when you talk as much as they did, whether it's the 2 players, the head coach's wife who called Shedeur a B last season, I think a little talk is warranted, especially when you do all that talking and then you try to become friends as soon as the clock hits 0. Scott, what do you think of this take? Did I surprise you? Did you think I was going the other way?
No, I don't think you didn't really surprise me. I don't think you were going the other way because you're a pretty sensible guy, Kevin, from what I can gather from our interactions or whatever, you know what I'm saying? But I mean, yeah, I agree with most of the majority of what you said. I mean, some additional context. That video, that interview with Brayden Fowler-Nicolosi and Tory Horton was actually from last month during media days in the middle of August, but it was
viral this week.
held right. It was held until this past week, a few days before the 2024 Rocky Mountain Showdown. And obviously that kind of gave Shedeur, Coach Sanders, really the whole Colorado Buffaloes football team extra motivation, just a little bit of extra to do what they did on Saturday night, which was completely manhandle, embarrass Colorado State in front of their home crowd, in front of a sellout home crowd. The
biggest
first time
in the program.
First time Canvas Stadium was ever sold out. So, I mean, as the saying goes, right? Up around and find out, right? That's what happened to BFN and Tory Horton, particularly BFN, whose comments, that you just mentioned, that resurfaced a couple of days before the game. Just really, I had to double check. I'm like, is this real? Like, is this AI? Like, I know AI is, getting real,
really good. Scary good.
Yeah, it's scary good. And I'm like, I just couldn't fathom that BFN was talking out of the side of his mouth like that, as if Colorado State had beat Colorado last year, as if it wasn't the other way around. And like you said, I think Shedeur's response afterwards was 100% warranted. I mean, BFN was talking crazy. Tory Horton was talking crazy. And then for you to go out there and, pretty much both of them lay an egg. I mean, Tory Horton was obviously hurt leading into the game. He was clearly not 100%. I think he only had 2 catches for about 15 yards. He had a nice little punt return as well. But BFN was all out of sorts. I mean, throwing two picks. I mean, really wasn't looking comfortable throughout the entire game. So for him to try to act buddy-buddy with Shedeur afterwards, as if Shedeur was just going to shake his hands and be like, yeah, it's all good, man. Don't worry about all that stuff you was talking about me and my family and my team. You're crazy. You're crazy. Yeah. And again, if the roles were reversed, if that was Shedeur talking, on an interview about Colorado State, just imagine the things that would have been said about Shedeur Sanders. You know what I'm saying? So I just think that it was cool. It added another dimension to a rivalry. But again, if you were expecting Shedeur to act any other way than what he did post game, then you're just not too familiar with Shedeur Sanders, and that's okay. But there was nothing wrong, in my opinion, in how he acted in response to clear and blatant disrespect from the CSU stars.
Scott, Shedeur Sanders could throw a hell of a deep ball. He's very accurate, and he's going to hold the hell out of a grudge. You know, he's going to hold a grudge, and I think we saw that. And I posted a video of the interaction because I saw it when it happened right away. It was that, and then the Jay Norvell, Deion Sanders drive-by handshake. I think that handshake was about as short as the lifespan of a goldfish. It was so quick, it was so brief, and I totally got it, right. Like they're not friends. They're probably never going to be friends. And Colorado State, and I think this is the hard part when it comes to Colorado. In most cases, I feel like people view Colorado State as this boisterous, flamboyantly loud team where they're always running their mouths and they're just always looking for trouble, right? Colorado didn't say anything. They did not say anything about Colorado State. When Coach Prime, I don't know if it was you who asked him, someone asked him about Norvell's wife's comments. I don't know. Was
somebody
it
else? Yeah.
Somebody else?
Not me.
And he goes, met her at the Big 12 media days or whatever it was. Delightful lady. And then he said something about Norvell's comments where he said Colorado was the same team as last year. And Coach Prime was like, you know what? They're not the same team. They've improved. I like what I saw.
They took the high road. Coach Prime and CU took the high road all week leading up to that game. When they really didn't have to. You know what I'm saying? And it's crazy again that still coming out of this game, CU is still kind of looked at as the villain in the media, which based off, Shedeur's, again, reaction to disrespect, which is just kind of just par for the course for media coverage of this program at this point.
Oh, yeah. I think the tweet I saw that was going the craziest was current Green Bay, Wisconsin head coach, former Fox personality Doug Gottlieb, I believe is who he coaches for now. He tweeted, and I'm gonna pull up the tweet because it was as if like we said, like as if Shedeur was the one that was instigating all of this nonsense, right? He said, complete clown show at CU, as bad in victory as they are in defeat. Good on CSU, got their butts kicked and shook hands.
Oh my God.
I mean, that's total lack of context, total just like there's an agenda out for Colorado. Am I going to pretend that Colorado doesn't say some crazy things? No. Like when they went after Xavier Smith after the Athletic article, I was not a fan of that, right? The dude was asked for his experience. He gave it, and that's what happens. I mean, should he have known that his experience was probably going to get blown up? Yes. But should he be attacked for expressing that? No. But this is a completely different instance, and I think people are just sort of what we call nitpicking. And when it comes to Colorado, there is a lot of it. Would you agree, Scott?
I would, man. The good on CSU part is just what takes me out because it's like, bro, really? And it's like guys like Doug Gottlieb apparently, and others like him. You're looking for what you're looking for. You know what I'm saying? However you feel about Shedeur Sanders, whatever he's going to do, you're going to use that to fit whatever narrative you feel is right, and that's just kind of what happens. I mean, you can say the same for the other side. People who are Shedeur fans probably aren't going to have an issue with his response. But again, I just feel like the objectivity in a lot of this stuff is kind of gone out of the window when it comes to, this Sanders family and this program in particular, for whatever reason. I don't want to get into some of the underlying reasons that I think are involved or at play here when, we're talking about the media narrative of this family and this team, but
it's obvious. It's
very obvious if you pay attention, or even if you don't pay attention, if you just see some posts and the tone of things that people say.
Some might even say that the undertones.
Yeah, exactly. So we don't need to get into that. People know, but I agree. I mean, that's just they're the most talked about team, probably the most hated team in college football for a reason, and that's not going to change every single week, whether it's a win or a loss, as we've seen over these past 3 weeks. Colorado football is going to be atop the hierarchy when it comes to things being talked about in college football.
Easily. And I think the reason or the way that I already knew Colorado was the villain before we move on, but there was quite a few national media members at that game, right? And they're not interested in Colorado State. They're not interested in the last Rocky Mountain Showdown for 5 years. There was sort of a if Colorado loses, there's going to be an implosion in the locker room kind of vibe. Like I'll give you a little personal anecdote. It was David Shaw's final year. They had just finished, I think it was 3-9, and all year the media members, it was like the same 6 of us, right? Well, last game, which those of us around the program knew that it was his last game, it just wasn't announced. All of a sudden, the media room was full, and there was a lot of national people there. And it's like, okay, they're here for a big story. And so that's what it kind of felt like after that. Also, to go back to Doug Gottlieb's video real quick, Ryan from DNVR posted a hilarious context because he posted the video of Shedeur doing that. And then Ryan posted like the extended version of the video. Shedeur goes immediately to shake other players' hands. So clearly it was a personal thing between him and young Mr. Brayden. But if you can't back it up, you can't talk. That's just how it goes. When we come back, we're going to be talking about what we learned about Colorado, their identity, what they did well, and what I think they did not do well again. This episode of Locked on Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at 5 Hour Energy. 5 Hour Energy fixes tired fast. Whether you have a long list to do for work or a list of DIY projects to tackle at home, take a 5 Hour Energy shot so you could check off everything off your list. They have 0 sugar and a convenient portable size. It's a perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. And they have great flavors like watermelon, tropical burst, grape, berry, and more. And there's a flavor for everyone, so try them all. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, and that's the number 5, hourenergy.com, and get some 5 Hour Energy product today, you can use my promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. The offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. This code is not good on subscription orders. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. Joining me, as he does every week, is Scott Procter. Scott, we're talking about what we learned from Colorado. I'm going to give you one thing. You'll give me one thing, and we'll just kind of ping pong it back and forth. Let's start with, I'll just get it out of the way, the negative, right? And I have a big reason for this. Late game time management. Hated it, right? They're up 19, and they come out and throw the ball, I think, 3 or 4 times, right? Travis Hunter had been banged up after a chase down tackle, which, mind you, he got clocked at 21 miles per hour. That's insanely fast. That's flying. That's one of the fastest speeds I saw this week. Outside of Arch Manning, who apparently ran faster than Tyreek Hill's top speed last year, also insane. But Travis Hunter gets banged up, right, on a chase down tackle. I think it's just one of those situations where he got kicked or something like that. And he's back in the game. And after the game, Coach Prime confirmed that they wanted to get him his stats, right? He broke a record for 100-yard reception or 100-yard receiving games for Colorado. And he also had a stat line that is believed to not have happened in the modern era of college football history, which is amazing, like fantastic. Yeah. I wrote about it for Athlon. Go check it out. I'm sure Scott wrote about it as well. It's one of those things where we are witnessing greatness, right? I did not love the late game passing, not because Colorado State could have come back. That Colorado's defense was shut down, locked down. I hope Scott talks about it a little bit. Robert Livingston's doing a hell of a job. But the reason I didn't love it is because when you're playing a rivalry team like Colorado State, who I think by all accounts is probably going to be a middle-of-the-pack Mountain West team at best, they have nothing to lose, right? So there are chances for a dirty hit. We saw it last year with Henry Blackburn. They solved all the issues, right? It was kind of a Travis Hunter told everyone to stop. That was a dirty late hit. There was a hit on Shedeur Sanders, late hit him in the head, targeting. So I didn't love it because of what could have happened. Colorado has a lot at stake this season, whether people want to admit it or not. Them losing Travis or Shedeur or another key starter, when realistically you could have been getting Ryan Staub snaps. You could have been getting offensive linemen who don't play a lot snaps, like Zach Owens or someone else. Like, I didn't love it. Scott, what do you think? And after that, give us something that you learned from the game.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot of what you said. I mean, I didn't love it. It obviously wasn't ideal. I mean, when you have a big lead like that, late in the game, ideally you want to see run after run after run, followed by a punt, a safe punt, especially when your defense is playing as well as it has the last couple of weeks, as well as it did on Saturday night. For the biggest reason being that you don't want to injure your guys. You don't want to leave Shedeur open to additional hits, additional dirty hits, even your guys on the perimeter, even any of your starters, especially in a game that's completely obviously out of hand at that point. I don't love that from Coach Prime, Coach Shermer. or even Shedeur if he has a hand in, continuing to, audible or call pass plays, down the stretch there for whatever reason, whether it's to get guys stats, whether it's to, increase your Heisman, status. I don't love that, again, for a lot of the reasons that you mentioned.
Just because of the implications of injury, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Would you rather have 100 yards receiving and get injured, or would you rather go on a run here and make some noise in the Big 12? I'd like to go on a run, right?
Yeah, you want to mitigate those risks every chance you get. And obviously, this coaching staff needs to be better in that direction. Coach Brown was asked about it afterwards. He said that he don't know the protocol, right? He said if the other team's still trying to score, I'm still trying to score, which is, you can make of that what you want to make of that. But that's what he said about it when he was asked about it post-game. But in terms of something that I learned, or something that was confirmed to me on Saturday night and it went over Colorado State, is that, and you kind of alluded to it, I tweeted about it and made the rounds on the old Twitter, is that Robert Livingston knows what the flip he's doing. He's really like that. To me, he strikes me as a future head coach, whether it be at the college ranks or even in the NFL, which is obviously where he came from, spent the last handful of years with the Cincinnati Bengals.
Right.
Robert Livingston is getting the best out of this defensive group. It started in week 1 to me after a slow start at the gate, which is what you would expect. A new play caller, a bunch of new transfers, slow start week 1, first half. But to shut North Dakota State out in the second half until 2 minutes and 19 seconds left of that game, to pretty much turn the tide of that game where CU won the second half and ultimately the game, that was a big step 1. Obviously, week 2 was ugly to start the game. You're down 28-0 at halftime. Really only give up 3 touchdowns. When you count in the Shedeur pick 6 that gave Nebraska another score, but you shut out Nebraska in the second half of that game on the road. And a lot of people like to say, well, the game was out of hand. Nebraska, wasn't even trying to score anymore. I just don't believe that. I think Matt Rule, if it were up to him, he would have put at least 2 more touchdowns on the board in the second half. But Robert Livingston's defense showed promise. And then week 3, it all came to a head where they were dominant from the opening snap to the final snap, only allowing 9 points, only allowing 1 touchdown late in the game, stopping CSU on a 2-point conversion late in the game to, make that a 17-point game, which kind of maybe would have made things interesting. Probably not still, though. But nonetheless, Robert Livingston is pressing all the right buttons. I love his halftime adjustments. This defense doesn't look the same, coming out, from the halftime break in the most positive way you can think of. They finally got turnovers on Saturday night for the first time all year. Obviously, the big pick from Travis Hunter, the first pick of the game from Preston Hodge, a couple fumble recoveries. This pass rush, which what I thought preseason would be a top half of the Big 12 pass rush, is starting to get its feet underneath it. Deion Hayes had 2 sacks on Saturday. He looks like a player. Samuel Okolomba, I think, actually was the highest graded pass rusher on CU's defense by Pro Football Focus. And you add in guys like BJ Green, who had, a couple, big plays, some quarterback pressures, quarterback hits. And the second level with his defense is really, I think, where the most growth has happened over the last 3 weeks. Nakai Hill-Green, after not starting week 1, got to start in week 2, and he was awesome, not only last week, but also, again, on Saturday against Colorado State. The dude is just a maniac out there, constantly flying around, constantly making contact with the football violently. This boy brings his pads. And Levante Bailey on the other side of them, an inside linebacker, is just the same. I mean, this dude, you feel his hits through the TV. You know what I'm saying? You feel how violent, how fast, he plays. And so those 2 guys, inside linebacker, and obviously we knew that the secondary would be elite, and they finally got a chance to showcase that on Saturday night against a team that was actually trying to throw the football, quite a bit. Preston Hodge got the pick. Obviously, DJ McKinney was locked down once again. Travis Hunter is Travis Hunter. Cameron Silman-Craig is one of the most vocal, most important leaders on that defense on the entire team. And Carter Stoudemire, who got the start in place of Shedeur Sanders, played really, really good football. So this defense is impressing me. Robert Livingston is impressing me. And we know what this team is about offensively. If they can continue to improve and show that this is a legitimate defense, Colorado is going to be a problem for just about every team in the Big 12.
Yeah, they just got to be balanced. And let's talk about balance, because that leads me to my what we learn next. And I'm gonna plagiarize your tweet, Scott. I'm gonna do it right here. I'll give you credit. Consider it plagiarized. For the second year in a row, the best running back is a true freshman, and Michael Welch was, I mean, beyond expectations. Really, I honestly didn't know what to expect from him, considering he got no reps at all. It seemed like in the first 2 games, and all of a sudden he comes out 9 carries, 65 yards, 7.2 yards per carry. A lot of those yards came on a 25-yard run. I compared him to Doug Martin after the game in my Instagram live because he's got that like muscle hamster vibe to him. Like he's just so small and compact, but he's obviously yoked. Like he's such a big, strong dude.
I don't know the last time I heard the name Doug Martin, bro. That's a real blast from the past. There's probably a lot of people on this watching this who don't even know who that is, but I like that. I like that.
The muscle hamster, right? Like that's what they call him, and that's what he reminded me of. And so I liked what they did with him. I also liked what we saw from Isaiah Augusta, the Arkansas transfer. He got 6 carries for 31 yards, 5.2 yards per carry. So very nice dynamic between those two. I think Micah should be the starter moving forward. And I think, honestly, he should get a minimum of 15 carries a game. Like, that's just what I think this team should do. Will they do it? Probably not. But, I mean, that's just how they roll. But I liked what I saw from him. He made big plays. And I also wanted to throw in a fun fact. His 65 yards rushing are the second most of a running back in the Coach Prime era. Anthony Hankerson had the most with 74 against USC last year. So
that first 100-yard rusher under Coach Prime is going to hit the fan base like
build a statue.
For real. That's gonna be a heck of a day for CU Bucks fans on social media went out. But no, I agree, man. That was the biggest thing I was looking forward to seeing going into Saturday's game against Colorado State. It's this offense finding some semblance of a balance. And it was interesting, right? Because their leading rusher going into the game, Ohio State transfer Dallin Hayden, was obviously out after getting injured against Nebraska. And obviously they shuffled a lot of that offense around. You know, Charlie Arfordal, who was the starting running back the first 2 weeks, didn't see a snap, at least until offensively, at least at running back, at least into the second half. It was Isaiah Augusta, who you mentioned, Arkansas transfer, got the start. And then it was pretty much the Michael Welch show, you know, throughout the first half. And, you know, that was just amazing to see. I like that you mentioned my tweet, and I thought about it afterwards. I still stand by it, but a part of me feels like that might have been a bit of a heat of the moment type take, because I still believe in Dallin Hayden. I think when he comes back, it did, and it still might end up being true, right? Because Michael Welch isn't going anywhere. He proved on Saturday night that he needs to be on the field, that he belongs on the field, even as a true freshman. But nonetheless, when Dallin Hayden returns, I'm really excited to see him, you know, run behind this kind of new look offensive line, right? Because the offensive line was shuffled. We'll probably get into that too, but the offensive line was shuffled around for Saturday's game, right? Yeah. Justin Mayers, the UTEP transfer, was taken out of the starting lineup. Inserted was the FIU transfer, Phillip Houston, at right tackle, that allowed Tyler Brown to kick back into guard, and, you know, Khalil Benson to kick back into guard. So, you know, that kind of small change really obviously paid dividends. Shedeur was much better protected. Granted, it was Colorado State, but he was only sacked once. Pressured, not. Yeah, right. I wrote right after the game that it was 0 sacks, and then one kind of appeared on the game sheet afterwards. Right. I literally couldn't even remember it. So I think it was more of just a scramble that he just kind of.
In college football, when you give yourself up as a quarterback, they just give a team sack.
For sure, yeah. So I don't even think it was a legitimate sack. Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, that offensive line allowed 0 sacks on Saturday, which is awesome, especially for a group that is playing together. Those 5 guys playing together for the first time in a game all season. So, you know, back to the running game, that's what I wanted to see, right? Some balance. They finally, Coach Shermer, I think there was still, you know, only about 19 or so running back carries, which isn't a ton, especially when Shedeur threw the ball about 49 or so times. But it was still much more of a concerted effort to run the football than we saw in the first 2 weeks, which is what this offense needs, right? This offense needs balance. You can't rely on Shedeur to drop back 60 times a game, because not only is that make your offense predictable, but it just puts Shedeur in harm's way. It's going to get him hurt, you know, the predictability of that offense that we saw through 2 weeks. So, you know, good on Coach Shermer. Good on that offensive line for opening some holes, and good on Michael Welch and Isaiah Augusta for, you know, showing that, you know, proving Coach Sanders right, because Coach Sanders has been saying all season that they have some backs who can flat out do it. Michael Welch is obviously one of them. Augusta is too. He obviously put one on the ground or fumble late in that game, which isn't ideal. But nonetheless, he showed some juice. And again, when Dallin Hayden comes back, I think him and Michael Welch gives this offense a really legitimate 1-2 punch at running back.
Yeah, and I honestly think that sack came late in the game when they're trying to run the score up. And
I think so too. When
he got pressured and he slid down. You know how bad that could have been if he took an unnecessary. I'm just saying, not to harp on it, but once we start talking about it, the old brain, the hamster started running. They had 17 running back carries this game. So really would like to see that number go up, just because the unit is showing that if you give them a chance, they will do well. And also, I think this is being forgotten because of how quickly they turned it on the second quarter, excuse me. Colorado started slow to open the game, right?
I wrote about it. Absolutely. Third week in a row, they started slow and just can't keep doing that. But go ahead.
Defense gets a great stop, 3 and out. Colorado State goes 6 yards on their first drive. Colorado goes -3 yards on their first drive and slow start. And then Colorado State gets on the board with the field goal. And then Colorado misses a field goal, which, mind you, I think they need to make a change at kicker. Mata has missed.
About that as well.
I think he's missed 2 or 3 kicks in the past 2 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. And it's just one of those things where you obviously want to trust your offense that they could finish drives off, but you want to know that, hey, if we don't score a touchdown on every drive, but we get to this certain yard mark, we're still going to get points because empty drives are killer. And so, the offense started slow, and then kicking didn't really help much either. And so that was the other thing I learned. When we come back, we're going to be talking about Baylor, what to know, what to expect, and everything in between. This episode of Locked on Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. So just visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook. Let's talk about the Baylor Bears. They had a kind of a weird situation, I guess you could call it, this past week. They were without starting quarterback DeQuan Finn, playing a really good Mountain West team in Air Force, who's now reportedly being targeted by the American Athletic Conference. So that's interesting and something to look out for. But they started Sawyer Robinson, and I feel like people don't really give Air Force credit. They're consistently one of the better group of 5 teams, despite the fact that they throw like 3 passes per game. And Baylor beat the living breaks off of them. They beat them 31-3. Sawyer Robinson was 18-24 for 248 yards, and it was mostly Baylor's run game that got the job done. They ran the ball 38 times for 230 yards, 6.1 yards per carry, and 3 touchdowns. And so Colorado is actually the favorite, according to ESPN. They're favored by 1.5 points. It's homecoming, 71 degrees is what they're telling me. I don't know. I don't trust my weather reports anymore. It's what they're telling me. Rain. It could be some rain. What do you think about this Baylor game heading into it from Colorado? Motivation? Are they feeling confident now that they've won? What do you know about Baylor? What do you think about it?
It's opening up really nicely for Colorado, if you ask me. I think this Baylor game is probably the most winnable Big 12 game for Colorado on the schedule, probably next to Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. You mentioned that Baylor took care of Air Force last week, but that game was 6-3 at halftime. Right. 6-3. So obviously Baylor took care of business in the second half. They're the more talented team. They do what they should do, but I'm honestly a bit surprised that Colorado is only, depending on where you look, 1.5 point, 2 point favorite over Baylor, especially when they're at home, especially with the quarterback situations of both teams. Obviously, Shedeur Sanders is one of, if not the best quarterback in all college football. And you look at Baylor, they don't even know who's going to start for them at quarterback this week. You mentioned DeQuan Finn, the Toledo transfer, who was highly touted out of the transfer portal, kind of had a rough couple of weeks to start the season. You bring in Sawyer Robertson last week, and more veteran guy. And he played well. Granted, again, it was against Air Force, but he threw the ball well, took care of the football. It seems like Baylor fans really want Robertson to continue to be the guy for them under center moving forward. Dave Aranda said today that it's still a day-to-day with DeQuan Finn, who had a shoulder injury, was in a sling this past weekend. He's lost his sling. He practiced on Monday, but again, Aranda said that it's still a day-to-day with Finn, and, they're still unsure of who's going to start for them at quarterback. So, for those reasons, again, I mentioned that it's opening up nicely. Again, you're 2-1 right now for Colorado. I think this is a very winnable game on Saturday. Again, at home, on homecoming against a team that you should beat on paper. You're 3-1 going into, next week's game on the road against UCF, which is a very formidable opponent. But again, it's still, to me, even on the road, a winnable game, a game that, they'll definitely be underdogs, but probably not more than a touchdown, I would assume. If you get that one, you're 4-1 heading into the bye week. You feel pretty damn good about this season, moving forward. And obviously there's a gauntlet of, Big 12 teams waiting for you after the bye week. But again, I think it's set up nicely. Last Saturday was what everybody needed to see out of Colorado in terms of putting together a complete game on both sides of the ball, being balanced offensively, taking care of the football offensively, running the football, protecting your quarterback. And I think Colorado has a really good chance to do all those things again this weekend against Baylor in their Big 12 opener. And again, the biggest thing to me is that defense, man. Colorado's defense. If they have a legitimate defense, the defense that we saw on Saturday, saw in the second half of the Week 2 Nebraska loss, if that defense continues to look the same throughout Big 12 play starting this weekend, I think Colorado was set up really nicely to stack some wins here over the next few weeks.
Yeah, this game looks very winnable. I think, and you would probably agree with this, the key to winning this game is slowing down Baylor's run game and making whoever's at quarterback beat you with their arm, right?
Right.
Neither guys have really shown that they can be the reason that they've won. I think Sawyer Robinson showed that he can be a factor in a win, but he's not going to be the reason that you win. So you have to slow down the run game. If you look at Baylor's stable running backs, it seems like Dave Aranda just found a new toy and a freshman running back named Bryson Washington. He had 12 carries for 106 yards, and this was his debut game. He had 8.8 yards per carry against Air Force, and so he was obviously moving the ball pretty easily. And then they have a total of 3 running backs who have over 100 yards rushing on the year, and so this Baylor team is going to be physical. They're going to want to stop Colorado from throwing the ball. They're going to want to control the line of scrimmage and control the time of possession. So it'll be really interesting. Scott, before we go, let's give our predictions. I'm going to go Colorado, and I think it's going to be a low-scoring one. I think we're going like 24-21 kind of vibes.
Yeah, I definitely like Colorado to win at home on homecoming against a team, again, on paper that they should beat.
Yeah.
Score-wise, again, I think it's looking like the rain is going to be in the forecast. So that would, temper my expectations for the offense a little bit. So I'm going to go with like we're 28 Saturday.
31 is the season high. 31 is the season high.
Right. And there's going to be a game, right, where they explode and go 40 plus at some point, you would think. Yeah. But I think I can see a 27-13 final here on Saturday with Colorado winning again. I think that defense is going to continue to show that they're legit.
Yeah, I think they have a kind of a statement opportunity. Every week from now on, they're kind of going to be viewed as underdogs, right? Except for that Cincinnati game. And so every week is a time to make a statement. Every week is a chance to sort of get the people off your back, right? I think I talked about it earlier. That's why there were so many national media members there, because they wanted that on-site coverage of like, hey, Colorado just collapsed. We're going to be here for that. And so every game you win is a chance to sort of take pressure off yourself. So we both think Colorado's going to win. We both think it's going to be a great game. Scott, I appreciate you for hopping on as you do every week. Tell the people what you work on, where they could find you, so that way they could keep up to date. Because Scott was actually the first person on the World Wide Web to report that that Colorado had switched up the offensive line. Game day, I saw it.
I appreciate that, my man. Yeah, as always, go follow me on Twitter, now known as X, right here at the handle below. And if you care about Colorado football or want to stay up on Coach Prime and the Buffs, man, you tripping if you don't follow me. But go also follow my work on coloradoin.com. We got new content coming every damn day. So appreciate you as always having me on, Kevin. It's been a blast.
Of course. And thank you guys for tuning in Locked On Buffs. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. And we're here every single day, even after the games. We go live about 15 to 20 minutes after to talk about what went right, what went wrong, and everything in between. So make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. And I will see you guys tomorrow.